With Bruce Dern, growing up in Winnetka, Illinois, you had an interesting upbringing in that you came into close contact with some well-known people. Your father was Adlai Stevenson's law partner.
Right.
How often was Stevenson around? Were you able to observe him?
Oh, yeah, he was there, you know, I'd see him once or twice a week, probably, from 1946 to till he became governor, probably 3 years or so, you know.
So what was he like hanging around?
Well, he had 3 boys of his own. I went to Choate School for 2 years, my freshman and sophomore year in high school before I went back to go to New Trier, and Borden Stevenson, who was his middle son, was in school when I was. So he had his own kids, and he was a divorced man, and that was, we'd never been around a divorce. I mean, nobody there got divorced then. They just lived out the grim tragedy or whatever it was, you know. But he was very interesting, but I've never been really interested in politics because I had an uncle who was Archibald MacLeish, who was very political. He was Librarian of Congress. He was a Pulitzer Prize winning, you know, playwright and all. And he was very political. My parents were not too political. And when Adlai decided to run for governor, he had to disassociate himself with the law firm, Sidley and Austin, which was the firm my father and he were in. And so I didn't see him as much. But what interested me in him was that I felt that in my lifetime, he was the only man, and I was never old enough to vote for him, he was the only candidate that I saw that inspired enough in me that I would have got out and really made my vote count. And I always said that because I felt when he first ran in '52, he was the most white horse candidate we ever had to run for president in my lifetime. I mean, when I was old enough to understand what was going on. By 1956, the horse was a little dirtier. It wasn't quite as white. It was a little grayer. And I always felt that in 1961 and 62, near the end of his career, so to speak, that whenever I saw him at the UN or anything, I was watching a guy slowly die of a broken heart. I felt he was the only mainstream American politician I've seen in my lifetime who got out before his time, and it wrecked him. I think he really had a dream. I think he really believed. I just think somehow the country wasn't ready to perceive him as he felt he needed to be perceived.
Hershey's, the great American chocolate bar.
Michael J. and family no longer tied to their 7-year hit Sit. Was it a 7-year itch to split? The story in this week's People, plus more juicy secrets from Andy's diary.
And look for this special People Extra edition.
Celebrate TV's 50 years.
Fancy perfumey aftershave. It's got to be a quarterback's locker.
Real guys who get mud on their uniforms use rugged, honest stuff. Ice Blue Aqua Velva.
There's something about today's Aqua Velva, man.
So you still think linemen are dumb?
For years, you've seen some commercials where one battery outlasts the others. So you may have assumed their battery outlasts even Energizer. Fact is, Energizer was never invited to their playoffs. And today's Energizer won't be invited either. Why? Because no battery lasts longer than Energizer. So now you know. A word to the wise. Energize.
Somewhere out there, someone's thinking of me and loving me tonight.
You'll be inviting us to your prom or graduation if you drink and drive.
The Burbs is still doing good box office. Bruce Dern, Carrie Fisher, Tom Hanks. Somebody described it as Ozzie and Harriet meets Charles Manson. And your daughter is breaking through. Roles in Blue Velvet and Smooth Talk. Laura Dern.
She's doing good. I appreciate it. I don't really know if this is the place to say this, but I listen to every sports interviewer and interview that I can. And the best interview I ever heard anybody give was the one you did with Jerry West last May or June during the playoffs. It was the best, most nostalgic, wonderful hour of radio I've ever heard in my life. I know it wasn't on television, but for anybody who could ever get a tape of that to me was classic programming. That was Joe DiMaggio.
I'm flattered.
I mean,
Thanks very much.
really...
Bruce Dern, I enjoyed it. We'll see you later.
Join us tomorrow night for more from L.A. with Jack A.
Accommodations furnished by the Sheraton Universal Hotel, the official hotel of Universal Studios. On your next visit to Hollywood, visit Sheraton Universal Hotel, the home of the stars.
I'm Bryant Gumbel. Tomorrow morning on Today, we'll get into the controversy over women owning handguns.
I'm Jane Pauley, also John Mellencamp, on a ride on the ultimate roller coaster.
That's tomorrow on Today.
Choosing a doctor can be a